Welcome to Milspouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to telling the stories of military families, one spouse at a time. Need some inspiration as you navigate military life? Moves, deployments, raising military kids, keeping your marriage together, career issues, and more? Get an encouraging, humorous outlook from a spouse who's been there for 30 years and more moves than she can count. Join host Jen McDonald, author of the book You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse who knows that we're stronger together. Grab your cup of coffee or a glass of wine and sit back and relax as Jen talks with military spouses, both new and experienced, who will give you real-life hope and support for your own Milspouse journey.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Milspouse Matters. I'm Jen McDonald, and I'm so glad to welcome you back to the podcast. I hope your week is going great wherever in the world this finds your military family. So just a reminder, please subscribe on whatever podcast app you're using. Your subscribes and reviews help us get the stories of military families in front of even more listeners. So it's hard to believe we're coming up on episode 17. And I'm so thankful to all of you who've listened. After this episode, I'm taking a break over the holidays and we'll start back up again after the first of the year with lots of brand new interviews and stories of military families. So be sure to connect with Milspouse Matters on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so you can stay updated on what's coming. And those are all at Milspouse Matters. So today I'm so happy to be talking with Courtney Woodruff. She is the wife of a soldier and mom of 2 boys. And she says she's doing her best to love her family well and lean on grace when she comes up short, which is daily. We can all relate to that. Courtney has a heart for moms and military spouses who know what it's like to cry out to the Lord in desperate seasons. And she uses her passion for writing to share her experiences and connect with women all over the world. She believes our stories have the power to inspire, heal, and spread hope like wildfire. Moving with the military 4 times in 7 years has gifted her tough life lessons, unforgettable family adventures, and unexpected opportunities. Currently, Courtney and her family are settling into the Pacific Northwest after a 3-year tour in Germany. You can find her at her site, CourtneyAtHome.com, and also on social media as Courtney at Home. So welcome, Courtney.
Hi, thank you so much, Jen.
It's so great to have you on. And I was kind of trying to look back to see when we had first connected, because we haven't met, but I feel like I know you. And I realized, I think it was through one of the military blogging groups, and you wrote a review of my first book.
Yes, I did.
And your book review was better than anything I've ever written. I was like, I reread it. I was like, this is so good. You're so gifted.
Oh, thank you. I look up to you so much, and so I'm so humbled to be talking to you today.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Awesome.
Well, like I said, we haven't met, so maybe if you met me, you wouldn't anymore, but that's really, really sweet of you. I appreciate that. So tell us a little bit about your family, other than, I know you guys just got back from being overseas for several years. So just tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Okay. So my husband is in the Army. He's been in the Army for almost 8 years, and we have 2 little boys. They're 5 and 7, almost 8. And I am writing and doing web content strategy, and we are just kind of transitioning into life here in the States after being in Germany for 3 years. It's been a struggle, but it's been great.
How long have you guys been back?
Let's see, say 7 months, a little over 7 months.
So do you feel acclimated yet, or are you still kind of like everything is strange still?
It is so strange that when you come back to your home country after living overseas for so long, that it's just reverse culture shock is real.
Oh, it is. Oh, yes, it is.
I'm just now 7 months into this. I'm just now starting to get comfortable with, all of the constant advertising and all of the people and the stores being open 24 hours a day. The hustle and bustle. It was overwhelming at first, but
it is. And I don't think people understand that if they just go on a trip. It's so different,
right? To
be fully immersed and living over there and then come back. It's noisy. Like you said, it's so noisy. Mm-hmm. So how have your kids done?
They have done better than I thought. I am the one where I always want things to go so well. And so when I have high expectations, and when we hit bumps in the road, I start to get really, really nervous about it. But I'm learning that those bumps in the road are actually good for them. And it's helping them be stronger. I mean, just as individuals, but it's been awesome to see their relationship blossom during this move, because they are so close as brothers now. And having been through this experience together, I've seen them grow, and that's been really awesome to me.
Every time we moved, my kids, they always had a buddy because they had each other, or just, I have all these memories of them playing cards, in the temporary lodging or on the little playground, because they just had each other. You don't know anybody else. It is very special.
Yeah.
And you did not have a background at all with military life, did you?
I did not. No.
So how was that when you said you've been married for 8 years?
9 years, last August.
Okay.
So really all that I knew about military life was just what I learned in my English literature classes. I remember sitting in my English literature class in sophomore year of high school, reading A Farewell to Arms, and just imagining being in a relationship with a military man. And I remember thinking to myself, there is no way I could do that. That just sounds so hard.
That's so funny that your mind projected to that, because I think when I read those, I was like, this is sad. End of story. Yeah. Like I didn't equate it to myself at all.
Yeah, it was very sad. It was kind of a dark romance. Yeah. There was a romantic element to it. So I don't know. I connected with it in some way back then. But of course, here I am married to a soldier now. And that wasn't a part of our original plan at all. So
you met him pre-military?
Yes, we met in college. We were both working in the same dining hall. So I was basically a cafeteria lady.
Oh, how cute. With the hairnet and all, right?
Oh, yeah, you know it. So I guess he liked the way that I prepared salads. And
oh, I love it.
Yeah, we just became friends. We kind of shared interest in travel. He grew up in Germany, in Europe, overseas. Both of his parents were in the Air Force. And I lived in this tiny little town my whole life in the piney woods of East Texas. And I just kind of had this itch for adventure. And so I started traveling in high school, and after high school, I would work to travel. And so we really just connected over that love for travel and became friends.
So how did he decide to go into the Army?
Well, it was right around that time where the Air Force was doing all of those cutbacks, and the Army was really ramping up for all of the boots on the ground exercises in the Middle East. And so it was just one of those things where he wanted to get in the military, but you had to have a specific background or skills to get into the Air Force. And he's colorblind. And so that really kind of has been a hurdle for him doing what he wants to do. He wanted to be a pilot, but he can't.
So you said you grew up in a small town. I grew up in a really small town in New Mexico. We were by a military base, but I didn't feel prepared because I really didn't understand that life at all. So did you feel prepared at all or not? Or was it like a big shock?
It was a huge shock. I did not feel prepared at all. And mostly just because we were separated for so long right there in the beginning. And I kind of felt like I was just completely, I didn't have control in our life at all.
I think you said that you had a baby by yourself pretty early on.
Yes. So he left for basic training 3 weeks before our first son was born. So he was off learning how to be a soldier while I was learning how to be a mom all by myself. And we didn't live together again until we were in El Paso almost 9 months later. We were stationed at Fort Bliss. That was our first duty station. And so being separated at first for so long was really difficult for both of us. And learning how to be a military spouse on my own and a mom at the same time, it just really threw me for a loop. I wasn't prepared.
Yeah. And did you have any support? Or did you move to the base by yourself or did you wait?
My husband went to Georgia for AIT, so for his initial training after boot camp. And I did go out and live out there. We were living in a hotel room the whole time he was there, but I don't regret that decision for a minute because as soon as we got to Fort Bliss, he got orders to deploy for a year.
Oh my goodness.
Just coming back together and learning how to be a family for a first time and all of the pressure of being in the Army and me learning how to be a military spouse. It was a lot of change at once. Yeah. And because I'd grown up in that small town my whole life, I'd never had to cope with change in that it was a significant amount of change to deal with at once. And I really struggled with that.
It is. And I know that you mentioned to me that I'm trying to think how you worded it. Growing up with stability is a luxury. And I was like, that is such a great way to look at that because that's how I grew up too. And my kids don't have that, obviously. Right. It's just a different life. But it really was. It was such you don't realize as you're going through it that not everybody grows up that way, right. I guess. But no, I was ill prepared to deal with separation because that wasn't part of my background at all. So what did you do to cope as far as that initial separation when you're like, what in the world did we sign up for here?
To be honest, I didn't cope very well. I really struggled with anxiety and depression, and I just kind of threw myself into being a mom to my son. I think that was really what got me by during those times. I isolated myself because I felt like the military was so intimidating and scary. Just going on base, I wasn't aware of the resources that were there, but even if I was, I don't think that I would have taken advantage of them, which is terrible to say, but I was just so afraid in that time.
It's intimidating if you're not from that world. It's so intimidating. And I think that's a lot of, quote, senior spouses don't get. They'll be like, well, we offer this newcomers thing. We offer that. And if you're feeling like what you're saying, and I felt that way too, where I would think, well, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I'm going to do it wrong because I don't understand this world, you know? So you mentioned dealing with anxiety and depression, and how did you get beyond that or learn to live with that?
To be honest, it took kind of a realization that, you have this lack of control in military life, and that was kind of the root of all of my anxiety and depression, not being able to plan, because I'm a planner and I'm a perfectionist and I like to work towards goals, and that's really difficult in military life. So just realizing that about myself, and then understanding that I'm not the one in control anyway, God is, that was life-changing for me in military life. I mean, it's one thing to know that God is in control, but it's another thing to see it. When you look back at your life and the things that happen, it's a learning process. And so it takes time. And so really, I just kind of, I struggled, but once I realized what I was struggling with, I advocated for myself. I went out and I sought resources and community, and I went out, the blogging community online is really, has been so helpful to me as a military spouse, just connecting with women going through the same thing as me. That really helped too.
Yeah. And I think too, the other thing is, and we went through a really rough time at about 7 years in, and a lot of things had led up to that. It was, we had kids, we had a miscarriage. He was in school. I was alone with the kids all the time. You're far from family. And there was a day, and I'll never forget it, where we'd had an argument, and I packed a suitcase to go get them and leave. That's where I was going to leave, just going to go drive to my sister's. And I just will never forget, I walked towards the door and he just stood there, and I've never seen this face on him. And he said, "You're not taking my kids." And then he goes, well, you can take her because she's nursing, but then you have to bring her back. Like, and just that he was heartbroken, you know? And I was like, I can't drive away and leave my children, but I can't stay here because we're so terribly unhappy.
Yeah.
And I was mad, like, and I did stay, and I'm pretty sure I slept on the couch and didn't speak to him. And I believe, this is my belief, because it did not get better instantly, but I believe God honored the staying because there weren't any underlying issues like, abuse or anything like that. It was, we just were very disconnected.
Right.
And there had been a lot of issues. And so I say all that to say, I think this is more common than maybe we like to talk about in the military community because you don't have anybody else to talk to. And so if things aren't going well with your spouse,
Yes, totally.
And it was a very long-term process of healing and having that turn out okay. And I remember telling one of my kids this story and they're like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, you have no idea.
Yeah.
It was rough. So I don't know if you've been in a moment like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I have had family members and I have had friends say, you guys have a perfect relationship and you guys have never struggled with your relationship. And I think,
oh my goodness,
wow, is that really what that looks like? Because it has been so hard in the beginning. I mean, my husband and I, it's a choice to stay together and to work through it. And there was a point when my husband and we realized that we can't do this anymore. We're completely broken. I wanted to quit. And it took us realizing that we can't do it, but God can. And just kind of laying that at his feet and saying, God, we're broken. We have faith that you can put us back together, but we don't know what to do. And like you said, it didn't happen overnight. But it did take us going out into our community and being intentional about some things and just taking advantage of the opportunities that crossed our paths. We watched movies. I don't know if you've ever seen Fireproof or there's another one that's similar. When my husband was deployed and I was home, he watched one of those movies and I watched one of those movies. We watched them separately. But it did something to each of us. It kind of lit this spark inside each of us. And now, Jen, I might be rambling, so I'm sorry, but you can cut that out. So this is kind of a cool story that I just want to share with you. So my husband was really struggling. So I was raised a Christian. But I kind of, whenever I went to college, I just kind of went my own way. I didn't go to church and I just kind of pursued, that logic instead of that spiritual path. And so my husband wasn't raised in a religious family. And so he had very few experiences in a church environment. So it just wasn't a big part of our lives when we got married. So we didn't have that spiritual foundation in the beginning. And it took this really difficult deployment to kind of break us down individually, separately on opposite sides of the world to bring us together with God at the center of our marriage. And I think I'm so grateful for that deployment now. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that. It sounds crazy. I'm grateful for that time. It was so hard, but it's amazing to see where we are now as a couple and how much we have grown since then. Not that we're perfect by any means, but we're so much stronger as a couple than we were in the beginning. And whenever he was deployed, he was struggling with depression also. We were both struggling separately. It's very hard to be separated for 12 months, just at any age. That's such a long time. He randomly found a Bible and this stack of giveaway books, and he just kind of picked it up and started reading it on his own. And at the same time, I was just walking through Walmart because as a young mom who is living in an apartment by herself, you get out and you just do stuff randomly just to kind of be around people. Can you relate to that?
Yeah.
So I was at Walmart just to be around people. And I just picked up a Bible one day and took it home and I started reading it. So we started reading the Bible at the same time on opposite sides of the world. And neither one of us knew that the other one was doing it.
Oh, wow.
And it is amazing. And when we came back together, we realized that our Bibles are his and her. They're the same Bible. His is blue and mine is pink.
Wow.
And they're from the same company, the same ISBN code, except for the last few numbers. It's pretty incredible.
How special. And I think that's the thing, is faith makes such a difference because, I just feel that God honors that, and your commitment and your faith of, maybe this is not working the way I want it to right now, but I'm going to hang in there and I'm trusting you, God, to work through this. And I had a friend mention to me, she's like, I always had an exit plan. And then I had to realize that I couldn't have a marriage where I had an exit route planned. I was like, that's, in the back of your mind, if you're thinking that way, your marriage is not going to be stable and strong. It just isn't. So that's so amazing. And then you just felt like God was working in both of your hearts, and then you came back together and realized that.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
We needed that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So going forward, that just, I'm sure, helped a ton.
It did.
So I know that you mentioned, that feeling of wanting to be in control. And I don't know if you listened to the episode with Kelly Artis, where she talks about the Enneagram of personality, and how it applies to military life. I did go through that, and at first I was like, what is this gimmicky thing? Because I've done a lot of those personality types. I'm like, I know what I am on the Myers-Briggs and, whatever else. And so looking at that through the lens of military life, I really wish I had that information about 10 years ago. So if you're prone to the type of personality that likes to know what's coming, this is a very hard life. If you're the personality that craves community and needs community, it's tough to move every 2 years and try to recreate that every time. So it's just been really interesting to me. And when I hear people talk now, because I've been studying this now, I can kind of hear things about different personality types. It's really intriguing if you haven't looked into it. But now that your husband's considering transitioning out of the military, this whole feeling of control, how has that bubbled back up, and how do you look at this differently than maybe you did when you were younger?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. And I did actually go and do the Enneagram thing.
Did you?
That. Yes, I love that she is promoting that, because I do that. I think I mentioned this, that awareness and understanding who you are as a person is so important. And after my husband and I really started focusing on our marriage, we did the 5 love languages class. Have you ever done that before?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I haven't taken the class. I've done the study a couple of times. Yeah.
It can be kind of corny, and maybe you don't quite fit in the boxes, but it really did help us understand each other. And knowing that I was my number one love language is quality time. That deployment was particularly hard for me because we were not together, My love tank, as they say, which sounds silly, was just kind of running on empty that whole year. Mm-hmm. But yes, the Enneagram I am a 9, which I think is a peacemaker.
Oh, are you?
Uh-huh. But so that's cool. Yes, I love learning more about myself and my friends, and especially my husband, because it helps us understand and helps us know how to love them better.
Right.
Back to the control issue. Yes. So having this lack of control in military life is really hard for me, just because of who I am. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as my husband started talking about wanting to get out, I went to my notebook and I started making lists and, pros and cons columns. And I came up with 5 contingency plans, because the first 4 might not work out, and I want to know exactly what we're going to do.
Are you sure you're a 9?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I didn't take the right one. I just took a free version.
Oh, yeah. They say don't take a quiz. You have to study them and see which one resonates with you. Like there's not a quick answer. So what I thought I was is not what I was, because I had adapted to a certain way of doing things that wasn't my natural bent. But that's, you don't have to go into all that. But anyway,
okay.
It's very intriguing to kind of dig down and discover like what's your motivation. But yeah, so you're a list maker, huh?
I'm a planner for sure. Yeah, and when I started doing that, I just started feeling just that loss of control, and that anxiety and depression started coming back. And it just kind of reminded me, wait, Courtney, hold off. You are not in control of this.
Yeah.
So awareness, understanding that is how I react to stress, and knowing that none of this is really mine to control anyway, really changed my perspective. And so now I'm just kind of, I'm like, yes, God, there are things that I want, but I know that you know what's best, not just for me, but for everyone that's involved in this, for your plan. And so thy will be done is a prayer that I have gotten used to saying. And it's really scary for me to say it because I like to cling so tightly to everything. But it has helped so much in military life.
It is hard to give up that control. And I think if you're the type of person that kind of has to think through every possible scenario and the worst that could happen and then somehow plan for it, and realizing that you react that way, I think is the first step. And like you said, just stepping back a little bit and going, I know this is how I react. And it's not that it's wrong, but it's feeding your anxiety and like kind of taking a step back because there's so many unknowns. There's no way you could possibly plan for it all. Right. Yeah. And I think too, like, it's always good to, sometimes we think we wish we knew what was coming and you just don't want to know. So yeah. Well, this episode will come out during the holiday season if I get my act together. So, which can be a really tough time for some military families, just depending on what's happening, whether they're just far away from home or have a spouse deployed or something, or they're brand new or they're moving. So what advice would you give to somebody that's struggling right now?
Well, because the holidays are, a time when you're together, you're supposed to be with your family or your friends. Being alone, this is a really hard time of year to feel alone. And honestly, I would tell people to read your book because I think that I really wish that I had it when I was a young military spouse, brand new. I think it would have been a game changer for me. So yeah, I would tell people to read your book. You are not alone.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Also would tell people to,
I didn't pay her to say that, guys.
No, she didn't. It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful book. And I also think that reaching out to people, finding your community online, if you're comfortable doing that, I think that can be wonderful because you don't have to be alone. You can be in contact with people who are going through the same thing. I know there's the Christian Military Spouses Facebook group. Joe My Gosh, she's really great. So yeah, just find your group. And also I would
find your people.
Yeah, find your people. To just realize that it's okay to not feel happy all the time because it's a joyful season. But just know that if you're sad, it's okay. I always think of the joy of the Lord as my strength whenever I'm not feeling happy, because his joy is going to get us through it. So I think that's what I would tell.
Yeah. Did you mention another book?
Well, the only other book that I wanted to talk about is the Planting Roots Bible study that just came out. It's available on Amazon.
And that's for military spouses?
Yes. It is a devotional for military spouses.
Oh, okay. And it's on Amazon. We'll definitely link to it. Well, and I like what you said about you don't have to be alone, because there are so many resources and you can find something. And sometimes you just may not have somebody in real life. And I don't ever advocate like only have online friendships, but let's just be honest, there's places that's all you've got for a time. And it's just such a blessing to have that. And I know I mentioned this when Steve has been deployed during the holidays. You know, you get to December, I just want to, even before Thanksgiving, I want to pull the covers over my head and be like, can I just sleep till January? I would like to just check out of this whole time coming. And, you know, it's never an option for some reason, but if you feel that way, it's okay. We totally get you. We know what that's like, and consider this a big warm hug across the miles, because we totally understand. And connect with us on the Christian Military Spouses Facebook group. That group is really growing. I've been so pleasantly surprised with that, and several hundred people in there now. But it's a place to go share prayer requests, and we're doing a devotional every week or two. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, and we'll link to that as well. So the Planting Roots study, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about that.
So I didn't write this book, but I am a part of Planting Roots, the Planting Roots team. And I know we're really excited about this. It's called Beyond Brave, Faith to Stand Firm in Military Life. And it's a Bible study for military women. That includes women in uniform and women in military families. So go check that out if you're interested.
Cool.
Yeah.
So back to military life, do you have a favorite duty assignment, or was it overseas or somewhere else?
Okay, let's see. Yes, Germany. We have moved quite a few times in 8 years, and we were in Germany for the longest. We were there for 3 full years. So I would have to say that yes, I left a piece of my heart there.
Oh, what was your favorite thing about it?
Honestly, my favorite thing about it was just the slow pace of life there.
Oh,
Looking out my window and seeing people walk down to the bakery with their little basket to buy their daily bread.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, it kind of felt like going back in time.
It is in a lot of ways.
But I also love the people, of course. I think that a lot of people say that, but the military community overseas is so awesome.
It's so different. If you're hesitating on an overseas assignment, you need to just go, because that is such a unique experience. The community over there, not just Germany, really any overseas assignment, because all you have is each other.
Yes.
So it's just very special. I always would miss that when we'd come back, because you'd be like, why is the spouses group not unified or whatever? You go, oh, wait, because we're in Texas and they have other places they can go and visit family. And I know you had mentioned traveling before you got married. One of my favorite places, and so of course I haven't lived there, so we got to go to Ireland last year. Did you ever go there?
I went to Ireland in college on St. Patrick's Day one time, but not while we were overseas.
Those are my people, I'm telling you. We never went while we were stationed over there, but we've gone, and we're going to go again this spring for my daughter's dance competition. It's like, this is where I belong. This is the life I need to live.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Have a great time.
It's kind of like Germany, though, as far as things are very walkable. You know, you stop and have your coffee and cake in the afternoon. There's lots of people out walking, rain or shine. The difference is you can just read all the signs and everything's in English. Which is quite convenient.
That's very convenient. Yes.
But it's so similar. And when you were saying that about the different pace of life, I can just picture it. And then Steve will say, but you forget the inconveniences, like trying to get your car fixed or how small the oven is, or, you know, it's a trade-off.
Right. I remember right after I got there, I was so irritated because I couldn't pay for my gas at the pump. I had to go inside.
Yeah.
Like how so inconvenient.
And do they still have the little ration cards?
Yes.
I'd say it's been a while since I've been to Germany.
Still rationing.
Yeah.
Gas and coffee.
Yes. So what advice would you pass on to other military spouses about adapting to challenges like living overseas or deployments? Like, what would you tell them?
I would say just do it scared. I know that sounds really cliche, but
I love it.
You're gonna be scared. I was so scared those first 6 months. we lived off base in a house. And honestly, we were so close to moving on base just because it was just so out of my element and comfort zone. You'd hear stories and you'd see things on the news, and it just contributed and added to that fear. So, but I had to make this choice. I understood that fear is something that lives inside of us. It's not something that is an outside influence. So wherever we go, that fear is always going to be there. And if we give in to that fear, it's going to keep us from doing really awesome things that we want to do. I finally just said, you know what? I'm going to go to the grocery store every day, the local grocery store. I didn't go to the commissary for 1 month. I challenged myself. And so everything we made at home. And it also happened to be the month of Thanksgiving. So I learned how to make, traditional family dishes, but went to the grocery store on the economy. Just forcing myself to do things outside of my comfort zone, I think, is the best thing that I did while I was over there.
And that's such good advice, because it's very, very easy to get into the American community cocoon. I remember driving one of my kids off base. We had to live on base because of my husband's job. And so it was like to a birthday party or something. We did tons of stuff off the base just because we wanted to really experience life there. But I was driving a minivan. I pulled over and cried more than once because I would get lost, or even though I had GPS, I couldn't figure out where it was telling me to turn, or it would be like, turn here and you drive off a cliff. I'm like, nope, not going to do that. So I just remember coming up to this village and thinking, my van's not even going to fit down that street. And I just looked at one of my kids. I'm like, stop making friends that live off base. And I didn't really mean it, but I just remember thinking every time you would do something like that, it's like a little victory. It just builds on your confidence of like, look what I can do this. So when you make a point of, I'm going to walk down to the bakery every day, I'm going to go do this thing, it's a big deal.
Yes.
It's being brave. If you're there, I mean, I'm sure you can relate, but yeah. And then you get used to it and you learn to love it.
Yep. That's one of the things I miss the most, is going to the grocery store now in Germany. Yeah.
And it's a whole process. So look it up before you go do it, because you better bring your own bags and you better know where you're going.
Oh,
trampled.
Yes. So many
and like
times.
The carts don't just come out. You're like sitting there pulling out like, wait, why won't this just come out? Like, yeah. Take a friend, have a friend take you the first time and show you all the ropes.
Yes. And treat yourself to some chocolate.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about, I know you've got some projects coming up. So why don't you tell us more about that?
Okay, sure. So I am working with my friend Amanda, who is a really great motivational speaker. She's just wonderful. I can't say enough good things about her. She and I kind of are like-minded, and we're going to start working together on a project called Bold Mama, which is just encouraging women to live out their own version of bold. So bold does not look the same for every woman, and we are encouraging women to just kind of understand who they are and own that and live boldly in their own lives and circumstances wherever they are.
So is that like a study or something, or like a course, or just a community?
This is going to be a community, so we're just kind of slowly putting the pieces together for that. She's getting things rolling on Instagram, so if you want to hop over on Instagram, she's at Bold Mama, BoldMomma.
Okay. Well, you do have a lot of great content on your site, and I would encourage anybody to go look at it, because I just love the way you express yourself and put things into words that everybody else can relate to, but you just have such a unique, gifted way of viewing the world. And I hope you always will keep writing, because I think it's such a blessing to others. So don't stop.
It means so much to me. Thank you so much.
Well, before we close out, I always do this quick 5 that you won't know ahead of time, that Courtney doesn't know ahead of time. So she didn't get a copy of these. So here's that whole control thing. But no gotcha questions, is just fun and a way to let listeners know another side of you. And I have a feeling like a couple of these, I kind of picked them knowing your background. You're going to have an answer right away. So here we go. So the first one is, what is your all-time favorite book? That was a softball.
So The Secret Garden, I would say, is my favorite book. And
oh, I love that book. Oh yeah, read it to all my kids.
I love it. It was the first chapter book I read on my own, and I don't know, it just really, I really connected with it at that time.
Yeah, that's a good one. So as a child, this is number 2 question, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a writer and a mom when I grew
Really?
up. I've been writing since I was really little, just silly stories. Yeah, I mean, that's always what I wanted to be.
And did you think that it was a job? Like, were you,
No.
you thought that you could do it as a job? Because I think I thought the same thing, but I never was steered that way because it didn't seem legitimate, I guess.
Yeah, I always dreamed of writing books, but I didn't, you're right, I didn't think of it as like a job. And I definitely started out my education in a different direction. I went into art, and then I went into hospitality management, and then I, wandered around in all of these different disciplines, and I finally found myself back to writing. And
this is what they say, and this is what I feel legitimate, because I'm a registered nurse. They say that writers and editors really good ones come from other backgrounds, and I'm just going to hold on to that. So you just have to have that natural bent. So there you go, Courtney. Yes. We're just going to stick with that. So, okay. Awesome. Just hold on to that. So number 3 question is, if you could have an unlimited supply of something for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I love that question. And I'm going to be really honest. I want Whataburger ketchup. Do you know what Whataburger ketchup is?
Yes. We live in Texas. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I'm so embarrassed that is my answer, but it's true. It's
or Chick-fil-A sauce. Yeah. I'm just like, yeah. We forgot about all this good food until we got back to Texas. And I was like, wow, I need to stop eating so much. Did you have people ship it to you?
Yes. My mother-in-law would ship it to me.
Oh, that's adorable. I love it. Okay. This is going to be a hard one. If there was a movie made about your life, who would play you?
Wow. It's a hard one.
I know. Whenever I do these questions, I kind of think through what would I answer. I was like, I don't even know.
I actually think that I might know who it is because my husband tells me that, or she reminds him of me all the time. Have you ever seen The Office?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Do you know Pam? I think her name is...
Yes.
Jenna Fisher. Yes.
I was going to say, is it Pam? Oh, how funny.
Yeah, our personalities are pretty similar.
Oh, my goodness. I love that show. So my kids, when they were teenagers, is when that came out. They still play it all the time. Like I think they know every episode.
That's awesome. But, someday I'll share that with my kids too.
Yeah, it's not really appropriate for their ages right now, is it? Okay, final question. This should be easy. See, this wasn't so bad, was it? So what is your favorite smell?
This one is stumping me. Let's see. I love the smell of coffee. I mean, a lot of people could agree with that. So I'm closing my eyes and I'm just thinking what my favorite smell is. And it's my husband's, you know how your husband smells after he comes home from a long day at work, that his ACU smell.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite smell. That's the first thing that popped into my head when I closed my eyes. So
Aww.
I will say that.
That's adorable. That's adorable. I love that. That's a really good note to end on. That's so sweet. Now you have to tell him. Yes, you have to listen all the way through the interview to get to the good part.
He will be listening. He always reads and listens to everything.
Oh, so does mine. That's amazing. Well, did you have anything else to add, Courtney? I know I'm going to tell everybody where to find you.
I don't think so. I'm just happy to be a part of this. I think it's so wonderful what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Oh,
I know it's really making a difference.
I hope so. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming on for sure. And everybody remember, find Courtney on her site, CourtneyAtHome.com. And then on social media, most of them are just Courtney at Home, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your story. Maybe we'll have to revisit again in the new year. I'm putting together the calendar. So yeah, I would love to have guests come back again, in 6 months to a year and talk some more. So, and also, I don't know if you guys realize, Courtney had one of the stories on the holiday episode that just came out. She may sound familiar to you. I didn't mention that before. Thanks so much for joining me today, Courtney.
Thank you for having me, Jen. It was a pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of Milspouse Matters. Have a great week.
Connect with Jen at jenmcdonald.net or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also purchase her book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Love the show? Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Until next time, have a great week.